So, when we last left off, the party had managed to storm their way through the rough terrain of Barovia, making their way back to Strahd's castle, where they were not met by throes of vampires guarding the palace or any sort of monstrous design that's overwhelming it, but instead find Strahd alone by himself, mourning, and all of his servants have been dismissed. And he is being possessed by the demon that he made a pact with so long ago. And by changing the fight to something of wits, intellect, you all managed to beat him. And with his duty done, he allowed himself to step down and see the everlasting night finally come to a close. And as the demon rips his ever-beating heart out, the pact that they made returned to her. She disappeared to find someone else to fulfill her desires, to toy with, to use, make another pact. But as the creatures that formed a barrier, an impenetrable fog that swept across the land, starts to fall and dissipate, you all are standing in a rather dilapidated room. Strahd's body is fallen into a deep pit, entering the chasm beneath Ravenloft Castle. His shadow, Giles, has been dispersed, and you are standing there. What would you like to do?
I'd like, if I remember correctly, as Strahd died, he snapped his fingers, and the woman who was trapped in time, the lover who never loved him, was released, if I believe correctly?
That is correct. If you step into the previous chamber that is slowly starting to dissipate as it was made of magic, it is a demi-plane space. The mechanism that was holding her in stasis has been completely shattered, and her broken body has fallen and collapsed and is withering away.
Oh, so she's dead.
Oh yeah.
Gotcha. I'm gonna just say a quick little prayer and not get sucked into the demi-plane.
Okay. Do you even go into it, or do you just kind of say that from a distance as it is like warping and starting to dissipate?
We've come a long way. I don't want to mess this up. So I'll just say my prayer from the doorway.
Okay. You do so.
Well, only one way out from here. Hey, short straw.
Fritz drops his bags, pulls out the drying pan, puts it on his hip, straps the axes to his back, straps the shield on, tightens the sword, readies his wrecking ball. Looks behind him. Is anyone gonna try to hunker down and wait till it's over to get out of here?
Ren,
The very end.
very, very quick, also following suit, kind of leaving his worldly possessions, with the exception of like some very important little things he's gathered from his travels from his friends, and stands beside Fritz, and he smirks. Hunker down? That's a coward's move. Wherever you go, I ride with you, Short Straw.
Very noble, my friend. It's an honor, and I'm sure I shall see you at the Isle.
My friend. He smacks him on his shoulder a little bit. Nothing would make me happier.
Overeye will kneel. We'll get into a kneeling position in front of the windows, watching as the sky falls, watching as the creatures that made up the barrier disperse to revel in the chaos that is their freedom. And with Emir sitting in front of him, he will offer a prayer. In these times of mourning and loss, we give thanks for the freedom to live and the freedom to choose. And for those of us bound in duty, I salute you, for there is still work to be done. He then bows his head as light starts shining upon Barovia again, and then he will lift himself and Emir off the floor and start walking towards the doors.
Rand
And the
acknowledges
view?
a respectful nod.
Of you, Alistair?
Stay here with you. Try my best.
I wouldn't mind going out to a happy tune.
Fritz pulls out the little doll, throws it on the stack. Anyone who survives and lives to leave, take that as a reminder. And he throws the omelet amulet, and take that to feed you for your trip.
Where are you throwing this?
Just on the pile of stuff that Fritz has dumped on the floor.
Oh, gotcha.
Just generically throwing it on the floor type deal.
Sylvester, you got anything you want to say or do?
Sylvester is probably going to pull out his sending scroll and send to Callie and tell her it's time to get together and either get out of Dodge or hunker down somewhere. Tell her I'm at Strahd's castle, and if she wants to meet me here, come on up. If not, tell me where to meet her. And I'll wait for a response.
Okay. Go ahead and roll
Here
a
we go.
persuasion check.
Sylvester, I think he said persuasion check.
Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't hear him.
No.
Yeah, I barely caught
See,
it too.
I'm sorry.
I haven't even brought up D&D Beyond yet. Hold up a second.
We'll be right back after these messages.
Okay.
To be fair, I haven't either, because I was under the thought of, if I have to, I'll just pull it up real quick.
Oh, actually, you know what? I'm going to burn an at 20 since I've got so many of them anyway. So there. How about that?
All right. She does respond, and she says, "Well, if you're at Strahd's castle and you're still alive, I think that means that you've done it. And if that's the case, I'll see you there.
Okay. She said she'd see me there, right?
Yeah. Because you told
Okay,
her that's
well,
where you wanted to
I'm
meet
waiting
her.
for her then.
Okay.
Yep. So I'm waiting for her.
Ren draws his sword, the lightsaber noise filling the room, and he reaches into his blouse and pulls out the very iconic item that he carries around, which is his shades, flicks them open, and then puts them on with a smirk. Okay, let's rock. And he initiates it, and he goes into full cowling.
Ward starts to stumble and slowly makes his way to the floor as Alistra sort of catches him and helps him down.
Well, it seems as so this is the end of my rope. You did it.
Would you like any mending?
He slowly shakes his head.
This is what I fought for.
And he turns his head slowly as the light is leaving his eyes to look at Kofurai. He simply says,
I hope you don't hate him for this. He decided he didn't want you to fix his mistakes anymore. That's why he left.
and then his eyes go dark, and slowly he dissolves into ash. And Alicia takes the stone.
I walk up to Alistra and I offer my hand to lift her up.
She takes it.
I then offer her my arm and I say, let's go see let's go see if we can bring back the order that's been disturbed.
Make a persuasion check.
I'm pulling a Sylvester. I've got how many nat 20s? 3. So I'll burn one.
She looks at you with this stern concern in her eyes as she says, I so badly wish to see good come back in the world. But unfortunately, I don't know where to start. I can't go back to where I'm from, not since I've been tainted like this. And, well, if I'm being perfectly honest, I'm afraid what sort of trouble I might cause if I stick around you. There are consequences to killing a god.
God of War.
Yep.
How would you know?
Stop.
How do you know?
Let him finish.
Sorry.
That was it. But
Wait,
for
that was
now, I will walk with you,
Okay, good.
and we'll see what the day has brought.
So long as we walk forward and continue to march forward, looking back will be pointless, but there will always be something new beyond the horizon in front of us.
piece it together.
My lady.
She kind of smirks and takes the gesture and begins to walk with you. Alright. Shall we now jump to individual people?
Sure, let's start from the top then.
Okay. Fritz and Ren, you're kind of tag teaming it, right?
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah.
Okay. So what are you guys doing now?
At this point, Fritz is gonna kind of stare out the open door and say, "To the aisle," and then just bolt out, start laughing maniacally.
Ren watches them for only a few moments as he kind of steps out the open door, and he looks off into the horizon, and he sees his wolf master, and kind of smiles and shakes his head a little bit, laughing. Sorry, master. Sorry, Red. But if this is how I'm gonna go out, I'm gonna do it my way. See you on the other side. And he charges in, yelling, "Long live the Wolfbringers!"
And you're also Super Saiyan, right?
Yes.
Okay. And what do you guys do? Where do your journeys take you?
It,
As I said, let's start from the top. If Alistair wants to
Alistair
go
isn't
first.
here.
Oh, that's my.
That's why we're doing Fritz and Ren.
Fritz fights as many of these monsters as he can, swinging first his wrecking ball till it breaks, then gore howl till it breaks, then his axe till it breaks, then his sword and shield till they break, then his frying pan till it breaks, then his bare hands until at last he boards the ship and begins his journey to the Isle of Peace.
And Ren fighting alongside him to the very end. At some point, his sun sword gets knocked out of his hand, switching directly to his fists. Freaking just going ham. And, punching, kicking, air jabbing. And then he unleashes one final Texas smash, taking out as many as he could, until he too, his full cowling wears off, and then he smiles.
And as
Beat.
the two go on this adventure, rushing straight into the fray, fighting as valiantly as they can with everything that they have, tooth and nail to the final breath, warriors as they have always been, never backing down from a fight, never hiding, never willing to surrender. They go out in a blaze of glory. Cobra, what do you do?
With Elistra by his side, he will guide her into the folly of this new world, while also showing her how enlightened mortals are, even those without the presence of the gods that look over the world. And he will show her the hope that we have developed on our own. In the time that it takes for them to travel and fight and deal with the horrors unleashed by Strahd's fall. He will eventually pass on with the hope that Elistra has found the means of forgiving herself for her weakness, and with the hope that she can embrace the angel that she still is.
And as you both wander the desecrated and ruined landscapes, haunted by memories and monsters alike, you fight, but you also find much more. You teach her and show her a way to understand that life isn't about just doing the right thing, being good and enjoying it. It's about surviving, thriving, and life isn't perfect and never will be. But it is exactly what you make of it. And in those journeys and lessons, eventually you pass on. And she continues to carry those memories, those stories with her as she trudges through the world with all this weighing her still. Riemann, what do you do?
Riemann has always worked towards one thing: to see the sun rise over the Barovian fields once more. Having succeeded, I think he will return home to the Bellevue Manor and assist in defending the people who undoubtedly stayed behind, not believing in the crackpot, weird worm trains. As I believe is expected, he probably dies in defense of the town and the rest of the people because, demonic invasion.
And as you move through the lands of Barovia, bringing peace and safety wherever you walk, making your way back to Crex Village and all the other places you visited, you try to help in whatever way you can. And eventually, your family does go to make their way back towards where they're from, to the town and house they call their own. And eventually, slowly, over a long period of time, you too also find your end, with the understanding and knowing that you did more than just what you could, what you should. You accomplished so much more, not just because of what you've done and where you've been, but because of all the people you've helped and what you've left behind. Sylvester, what would you like to do?
Well, has Callie showed up?
Yes.
Okay.
She's got a small bag of supplies with her. And you can see that
Cool.
she has cut out that streak of white hair. In fact, she's cut her hair entirely into a shorter, more, I don't know, sassy style.
Okay. Callie, do you have the teleport spell?
Sure do.
Because I think we can actually get out of here and go back to where I came from now.
I'm ready to go wherever the wind takes us.
Okay, I have a very specific place I want to go to, and I will put it in her mind with the telekinetics.
All right. And
I
what
will
is this
explain to her
place?
exactly where I want to go to. We need to go back. Somebody owes me some money. Because we made the Vistani people go away, and we were supposed to be paid to do that, and I haven't collected my money yet. And I need my money.
All right.
With Tahiti.
So you head back to the Morrowind residence at the very beginning of this campaign.
Yes.
All
Yep.
alone, without any of your original party members. And Kelly's there with you.
Well, not all alone. I've got Callie with me, yeah.
Yeah.
So I go up and knock on the door.
All right. And you are let in.
Okay, all right, I'm gonna ask somebody what day it is, because I want to figure out how long we were actually gone. See if this is one of those situations where time is the difference between where you are and where you are.
On the day that you arrived to the first day that you arrived to the Morrowind residence, you
Mm-hmm.
knew about the Vistani, and it was nearing nighttime, so you guys spent the night there, and then the next morning you went and visited
Right.
where they were previously camped, and then made it over to
Mhm.
where the Vistani was currently camped, and they offered you food and drink and said that as soon as they finished their meal that they would move on. So I would say that
Right.
was probably about early evening. It is now the next day. So you guys have only been gone
Of
for
course it
maybe a
is.
night.
Okay, I want to speak to the master of the house.
All
I
right?
want to speak to the one who made the agreement with me to go get him.
Okay. She is shocked that you look a little bit more rough and tumble and perhaps slightly older now. But more than interesting, she wants to know what happened and what happened to the member of her family, Zelena, and what happened to her bodyguard Red and her friend, Raylan.
Well, you sent us into a situation where they all died, and I'm not happy about that. And I'll explain to her what happened. And as I'm explaining to her what happened, I want to do an insight check to see if she knew that going out and meeting the Vistani was going to lead to this.
Okay. Go ahead and roll a persuasion and
I
insight
will.
check.
I will burn natural 20s for both of them.
Okay. You spend the time to tell her everything, and she is flabbergasted from start to finish. And she doesn't want to believe you, but somehow knows that your story is too unbelievable not to be true. She is shooken. And she had no idea.
So she obviously had no idea that was going to happen. Well, that just saved her life. Okay. In that case, then I will take my pay and I will be on my way.
Alrighty. And as you step outside the Morrowind residence, wouldn't you know it, there's a few wagons passing through. And you see a familiar face who gives you a nod in your direction.
Oh, how
Hey.
far away is he? How far away is he?
Within dashing distance.
I want to throw a dagger so bad.
As you get within like yelling distance, he yells like a thank you, uh, and I think then you kill him.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay.
Exactly.
You can absolutely kill him. Do you kill anybody else?
I will do that. No, just him. Just him.
Okay. um, the the Vistani start freaking out, but they hightail it out of there. And then we'll
Yeah, I'll
tell the
just look at him and go,
story
"What?"
of this creature that haunts them now. It's a story they tell their children.
Good. and and after that, me and Callie will go off and live a peaceful life somewhere.
Alright.
Have a few litters of kids.
Alright.
Damn.
I guess while we're still waiting for Alistair, I could give you some details on some of the other NPCs if you're curious.
I'm down.
Sure, go for it.
Carolyn maintains her winery and opens up a beautiful inn that is not marked on any map, but is fondly referred to in stories and tales of if you are walking alone in deserted, haunted forest, you may come across a respite unlike anything that will absolutely define your dreams. And she does quite well, and many people show up. There's a lot of reputation that precedes it, and eventually it might even turn into that tavern where most stories begin. As for Krex Village, most of the inhabitants are still scared, frightened, and unable to move on, but slowly but surely, eventually, they do maintain the courage and begin to spread out, to grow and thrive and build more than just what they have, and slowly start to take back the land that was taken from them. The witches that were atop Yester Hill managed to maintain the sanctity of it, though it has been long, long overdue. They managed to pull themselves together and eke out fair living that only is understood in fairy tales and myths, until even that is nothing more than just a story. And they, too, disappear into myth and legend. The town of Loki is left in ruins. No residents remain, and the remnants of what were are long forgotten. But there are still many stories to be told, especially about the large crater where people swore there was a massive tavern that used to be made out of a boat, and how there's this trench leading towards the river. And whatever tales and mystery and journey that boat may entail is another story entirely. Castle Ravenloft is set in flame as all of the paintings of vampires are released from their cursed forms. Their bound souls able to seek out whatever sort of afterlife they may seek, except for two sisters that make sure that every last inch of impurity is cleansed from the building. Make sure that no one else would stumble upon this or suffer the same fate. And then, and only then,
What?
do they leave. Deanne and Raquel, two vampire sisters. They make sure that Strahd's castle is purged of any sort of dark magic or vampire relations before leaving it behind and going and finding their own spot in the world, away from anyone and anything, and simply live out their lives in the best way that they can, surviving off of the land and seeing the sights as they always dreamed of. Down below in the village of Barovia, the last buildings are consumed by the land until nothing remains. And down below, in the shadowy reflection of the streets above, the Manberg still remains. Its connection to the real world, or whatever sort of dark amalgamations it has in reference to, are slowly fading. But a figure still stands and controls the whim of this dark nightmare. But as he is a businessman, he too learns that sometimes it is best to move on. And while he makes the most of every single situation, and attempts to make a living off of every situation, he knows that this deal, this current situation that he has, was never the best he was ever going to achieve. And was looking forward to the next big thing. Were there anything else that anyone was interested in? Any NPCs in particular you wanted to know about?
How's Smokey the Werebear doing?
Why would you bring him up?
As
Hey,
with
I'm living
all
in
of
these woods.
the cursed races of Barovia, they too eventually suffer a similar fate. They too made the most of this situation and managed to eke out a fair living. Though tough and strenuous, they too, with the rising sun, fade. But their souls are free and allowed to end up where they go. The Cainhurstians as well, with their ever fought, the last of them. There are only a few families that remain since the vampire attack. They too see that their work is finally finished. The eternal nightmare that they fought against is finally over. And now they seek a life where they finally have peace and can enjoy each other for simply what today brings, which is something that they, despite all of the visceral training that they have endured, they are unprepared for. And yet, it is in this enjoyment that they are able to learn and grow even more. Because sometimes When you fight for so long, you forget what you're fighting for. But now, they have the time to learn. Any other questions?
Is my master proud? Kidding, no.
No, you disappointed him since you very first met him.
And I did my job.
The giant centipede monster in the prison.
What the fuck?
What
Did I
is
miss
his deal?
something?
With the rising sun, the once magic imbued structure that is the Amber Temple slowly fades from existence and crumbles. Its underground design and twisting chambers and connections to the abyss beyond disintegrates and loses connection, and all the undead creatures and abominations within return to the pits from which they came. Their time connected to this plane allowed them to enjoy a strange life of servitude and undeath. And during that time, most of them managed to enjoy it with a good romp or two. The lighthouse, connection of story and myth as well, also reconnecting to the plane, the material plane, still stands. However, its connection to fate and destiny and the astral sea is lessened somewhat, and yet
17.
opened in other ways. What? What were you gonna say?
Oh, no, nothing. I was talking to someone else. Sorry.
Oh, okay. Bruno still watches over the lighthouse and makes sure that no one comes to desecrate it. However, he does accept visitors every so often and tells them the future that they never wanted to know in the beginning. But still, for those seeking knowledge of twisted fates and grim ends, Bruno has the answers. And Istis is once again reunited with her pantheon and allowed to continue her creation of the tapestry of fate and deciding the destiny of others. And somewhere, in another tower, a figure collapses to the ground, breathing heavily as he manages to feel himself and realize that he is once again in a living body. And he turns and looks at the cage that is being surrounded by several magic items, allowing him to escape. Morgan smiles.
If he wants, he can come back and grab his amulet medallion.
Okay.
Did you already go over the Mothman?
Yes, that's Bruno. He's watching
Okay.
over the lighthouse.
Yeah, I just forgot what his name was.
Okay. I'm just looking at my lengthy list of NPCs.
What is there like a world domination thing going on with those brain worms? Or is that purely a mechanic to be recognized by the
Yeah, what
trained
happened to
monster?
Jeff along with all of the other white streaks, or incarnates as you refer to them as, still work for Soot and manifest some semblance of power. However, they are separated from the dark world that was being held by Strahd. However, their powers are instead manifested in a different dark aspect through dreams. And though the endless night is no more, they are still able to manifest this essence in strange and different ways. So, Soot is still quite in power and able to perform many dangerous and deadly things. However, it is simply time to move on from Barovia towards the next big thing. But again, the dreaming, as it is described, it was granted upon certain individuals, and that is what allowed them to exit Strahd's control. Whether that be through the cycle of dying and being reincarnated, or choosing how to be reincarnated, or simply escaping Barovia entirely. That is how people were able to escape Barovia, because Strahd's hold on them was changed slightly as they were imparted with a different dark power. But the train that would allow them to move beyond the veil of this world still very much exists.
But it's not a train.
So worm
That's a
train.
story for another tale.
Uh-huh.
Keep it in the back pocket for a one-shot.
And Rickden's students, the Band of Wolves, still understanding the situation and the weight of what they know, what they've learned, what they've fought so hard to protect, seems less important now, and yet they do still take this learning with them. And they do disband. They allow the horrors that they fought here to die. And they hunt monsters far and wide and break up their party and no longer stand under one significant rule, but these warriors, these masters of understanding how creatures and dark magics work, split off to different corners of the world, searching out and destroying monsters as best they can and teaching others in the same. And they leave a wake behind themselves, tutoring and allowing people to understand and recognize the powers of monsters and train people. And basically they're like witchers, and they just sort of go out and make whatever sort of connections and friends they can, and continue to spread out through all reaches of the world and pass on what they know. Alistair,
Yeah.
what do you do?
In general, I like missed a bit because Lunar New Year.
People were just describing what they do now. Where does their story go and go from here, and if you would like to choose how it ends.
think how it ends is Alistair goes, leaves Barovia, and he tries to fight the oncoming darkness, but I think he doesn't really make much of an impact, and he self-exiles himself and like lives as a hermit for the last portion of his life, after passing on all his equipment to people he thinks would be better than him.
And what of the stories?
I think he takes them with him. I don't think he wants to share them with other people. I think
Interesting.
he even burns them. And I think he gives up writing and performing.
And it is a common decision to let the horrors of what happened here simply remain myth and legend and just nothing more, giving them no solidity or power, and allowing people to move on and forget what happened here.
Yeah.
Very well. And as the sun sets and the moon rises, the dark powers that are now wandering free in the mortal world still seek answers and draw upon powers of their dark connections and the machinations of whatever they can manage to manifest and take hold. They are fought off, and most of them turn into myth and legend, creatures in the night that some may not think of as real or take seriously, but still, it is these stories that allow people to grow and move and change and seek out a understanding. I forgot where I was going with this. Basically, the monsters spread out and they become more manageable over time. There was this initial wave that troubled many landscapes. Even, I will say this might give you some closure, Jack. The Morrowind mansion is under siege for a time. But eventually, just like as Barovia once did, people managed to find a way to live through it. And that is the true story that comes from this, is that no matter what, people will toil away and suffer strife, but still manage to carve out a life for themselves, to survive.